Welcome to Rethinking Freedom. This is our November 18th edition, and we are so excited to welcome these amazing men who are joining us today as our guests. So, tomorrow, November 18th, is International Men's Day. I bet you didn't realize there was an International Men's Day, and if you did, kudos to you, because it's really high time that we truly acknowledge and celebrate our men. Now, I know that there may be some people who are saying, well, men are always celebrated. Not quite in that way. But today, what we're going to do is not just focus on it being International Men's Day and their focus, which is positive role models. That's basically what they put out, is their theme is positive role models. Today, with our show, we're going to dive a little deeper, and we're going to be talking about men, mental health, and resilience, even as we address this concept of being positive role models. And so I want to take a few moments to introduce our amazing guests. I'm really excited that we get to hear from these three men, and you'll find out in a second why. So the first person I want to introduce is Chris Owusu. Chris is a local secondary education instructor in the Central Texas area, and he's been an educator for the past 10 years. And kudos to him, because we need Black male educators. In fact, I homeschooled my two youngest sons because at one point in the elementary school where they were attending, there was only one male teacher, the PE teacher, and there were no Black teachers at all. And I wanted my children to see people who looked like them. It's really important to me. Yes, and it should be important to you too. He's also a local volunteer with the JAIL, the Jail Ministry, and he's been doing that for 13 years. And he's one of the founding members of Boys Matters to Mentorship Program. So this is a man he's also a father who is all around showing up in our community and trying to make a difference. He's currently studying clinical mental health in order to bridge the gap between unhealed trauma and healing by promoting feasible coping skills in the Black community. So, Chris, we welcome you to Rethinking Freedom.
Welcome, Chris.
Sure, thank you.
And our next guest is also a Chris. This is Chuma Christopher Ogene. He's a Nigerian-American artist, a writer, a content creator. He's an illustrator. He's based in the Washington, D.C. area. He's also a highly rated marketing specialist, and he's actually being a little, he's not telling the whole story with this. He's being a little shy here. I wouldn't, maybe not shy is the word, but he's a trainer with fresh and unusual approaches to balancing community values and corporate dynamism. He has gone viral for some of his posts. So for both these gentlemen that I've introduced you to so far, you want to find their social media handles. If you're watching us on YouTube, we're going to put it in the description so you can go and follow them. The other thing that Chris does as well, Chris Owusu does, is on a daily basis, really. He is posting things that are constantly making you think about yourself, relationships, how you show up, your faith, your spirituality. Sometimes you just drop to the ground laughing, and sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, I have so much more work to do. And so we really appreciate having him here. And
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, Chuma.
Thank you.
And I should say that Chuma Chris Ogene has known me for a really long time. He's not allowed to share any secrets today. But we actually went to school together many decades ago. How long ago has that been?
I have to say over 4 decades ago. That's a long time.
I don't know what he's talking about. I just turned 35, so he must have me confused with someone else.
I got my math wrong.
You got your math
slipped out.
It slipped out.
No, actually, I'm one of those people. I'm one of those people who absolutely celebrates every single year. I'm not afraid to share my age. My brother, who would have been an incredible guest on this show, passed away at the transition at the age of 46. And so every year that I have
Super
on
nice
top of
guy.
the earth on this side is a blessing. And so, yes, it's been 40 plus years. And our third guest is, you guys might notice, if you're watching this and not listening on the radio, he has the same last name as I do, Madhu Anelli. Happen to have known him his entire life. We could say before he came into the world.
Wonderful young man.
Absolutely amazing young man. And it's so interesting because I asked each guest to send me their bio, and he sent me this bio, and I'm like, okay, so he's bashful or something, or he forgot because he didn't say much about himself. So I'm gonna fill in the gaps. Um,
Mhm.
this is a young man who is currently a CFD trader. He is also a mentor. He mentors young men. He teaches them basketball, and you're with New Sports Academy, I believe, with that. And then you're also part of another mentoring program.
So the organizer of New Sports, or the leader of New Sports, also her brother Iduari Fubara, also recently created a nonprofit called Leading with Love, which I have a board position on, and that is also another avenue to reach out to youth, mentor them, and find ways to enrich their lives.
Thank you very much. And this is a young man who, at age 13, published a book called "Am I Ready for Middle School?" We're waiting for the rest of the series. It's coming. But at the time that he published that, he was chosen by the Griot as a top 100, flown out to New York City by MSNBC, set records in terms of tennis, but was also a leading running back here in Central Texas. Went on to Ohio State University on an academic scholarship, walked onto the Ohio State football team, ended up playing for the club football team, setting a rushing record there, and just continues to do great things with his life. And I'm really excited
Amazing.
to have all
Amazing.
three of you join us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All
And
right.
it's a
So,
great opportunity to meet you guys, see men that make a difference in the community. It's huge because you know that in some ways the media has subtracted the men from main media, because we're supposed to be brutes and we're supposed to be these comical characters. So when I see men of substance that are trying to make a difference in the community and in the younger men that are growing up, it's great company to be in, and it's very nice to meet both of you.
Likewise.
all right. So
Likewise.
we're going to just jump right in. And I'm going to say on this first question, maybe about a minute or so, because there's so much that I want to get into with you all. So the first question I have for you is, what does it mean to you to be a positive role model? And is it important? And anyone who wants to go first can.
We
What
should
does it
just
mean
follow.
to you
Let's
to be a
follow.
positive
Let's
role model?
follow the sequence of the guests. So,
No, I'm
Chris.
gonna switch it up from time to time. So we'll start
Oh,
with
really?
Chris
Okay,
Owusu, but
that's
I'm gonna
good.
switch it up on y'all.
You do it. It's your show, and you're good at it. All right.
Thank you. So, Chris, what would you say? What does it mean to you to be a positive role model, and is this important?
Well, for me, first and foremost, it's extremely important because from what I've seen in the school system, there's a huge lack of a positive male presence. Unfortunately, what I see in the school system is that a lot of my students come from single parent homes, or they come from homes where the father doesn't know their purpose. So that has an effect, that has a trickling effect. And so what it means to be a positive role model, I think it means to be a man who has values which resonate beyond oneself. So to have values which involve growth, which involve faith, which involve just living beyond my immediate needs. So that's what it means to me.
Okay, so I probably should have told y'all to go get your writing pads. But if you miss anything because you're watching this, you're driving while you're listening
Yeah.
to this, come back to our YouTube channel, Rethinking Freedom, because you want to take notes. Just that first response. I'm taking notes. How about you, Chuma? What would you say? What does it mean to you to be a positive role model, and is it important?
It is absolutely important, and I want to say also thank you for everything that you do to
Mm-hmm.
be a big part of the community as well. I want to say happy International Men's Day to everybody who's listening, everybody who's watching. Um, Sometimes when I think of being a positive role model, I think of that statue of Atlas holding the world up on his shoulders and just bearing the weight of it. And he's kneeling on one knee and holding the world up because men have the responsibility of not only protecting the household and the community, but enriching the lives of the younger ones and giving them guidance. And I like what Chris said about spirituality as well, because the spiritual aspect of it is just as important as the social,
Yep.
as the financial, as the educational, as the mental. So some of the things that we're employing, exploring today about, the mentality, developing a good mentality. It starts by being a good role model. And if I'm a good role model, I have to pass it on so that other good role models are groomed by the little nuggets and things that I have picked up along the years to enrich the lives of people that are around me. And Chris said it exactly. You have to step outside of yourself because when you're a role model, you're an ambassador for the community. So that's
Yep.
what it means to me.
And someone might say, well, why would you even ask, is it important? And that's because there are actually quite a few people that I've seen out there who are like, I'm responsible for me. I'm not responsible for anybody else. Everybody do them. I don't have to I'm not a role model for your kids. You should be a role model for your kid, which is true. I'm ultimately
Absolutely.
responsible to be the role model for my child. But that doesn't mean that I should abdicate as far as I'm concerned, my responsibility to also show other children who may be watching, other women, even other men,
Mhm.
what we want to see more of in our community, in our society. How about you, Madhu? How do you respond to that? What does it mean to be a positive role model, and do you think it's important to be a positive role model?
I absolutely think it's important to be a positive role model. There are many reasons why that's the case. One of them being that the youth are the future. And with them being the future, it's very important that they have the structure, the guidance to become the kind of people that the world needs and that the world can use to continue building a better place for everyone to live. I think being a positive role model involves leading with kindness, showing them positive examples of how to carry themselves, how to support others, um, how to reach out to those in need. I think being a positive role model includes teaching them the ways to show up on a daily basis that don't just involve what are things going to look like for me on a daily basis, but how, again, can I have an impact in the world so that not only am I improving my life, but I'm improving the lives of all of those around me.
That's good. That's good. That's good.
That's good.
I
That's
told
true.
y'all this was going to be great, and you're hearing some of the similar themes here. Okay, so I'm going to actually take a moment to read a couple of poems to you all. One is by
Fantastic.
Langston Hughes, and it goes as follows. I play it cool and dig all jive. That's the reason I stay alive. My motto as I live and learn is dig and be dug in return. That's Langston Hughes. And
That's
then another
nice.
poem
Hmm.
by Gwendolyn Brooks. And she says, we real cool. We left school. We lurk late. We strike straight. We sing sin. We thin gin. We jazz June. We die soon.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
share that, and it's from a book called Cool Pose that I actually got when I was still in college many decades ago. It was published back in 1992. But it talks about the dilemmas of Black manhood in America.
Yeah.
And one of the things that this book explores is this concept of being cool and it being like a veneer, if you will, to
Yeah.
protect
Absolutely.
Black men from the societal ills. So, what are some of the issues that you see impacting Black men? And of course, we're in the United States of America, although we're going to find out that these things probably are showing up across the world. But what are some of the issues that you see impacting Black men today? And I'm going to start with Chuma on this one.
Okay. I had a feeling you would, but no, it's in the situations where we find ourselves in current society in the United States of America, and I welcome anybody around the world that's listening or watching. Don't forget that these things can apply in almost any circumstance, any society. But what we're seeing a lot of stereotypes. Again, we see broken families. We see men that are sort of squandering their attributes and qualities. We see people who are trying to redeem themselves as well. So we see a lot of challenge. There's a lot of ebb and flow within the male society and the male ecosystem, because we have, on one hand, the expectations of being a man. We always have to be strong. We have to always earn a lot of money. We have to protect the family. We have to protect ourselves. We have to have strong egos and that sort of thing. So you have the ego and the id trying to balance each other. And sometimes it's hard to stay focused as a man, because you're being pushed on one side, pulled from the other. But what I see as the most incredible challenge is the fact that society, with those stereotypes, expects us to be angry. They expect us to be violent. They expect us to be uh, overbearing, and they expect us to, walk away from our families and stuff like that. So the challenge is to balance and retract some of those stereotypes and learn how to be gentlemen, learn how to be empathetic. And so when you're a gentleman and you're empathetic, you can actually relate a little bit better with the people that are in the community, whether they're men or they're women or they're children. So that empathy is where I see brothers, and I say brothers in the general sense, as in every male is my brother. So empathy is the one thing that I focus on when I'm trying to either groom or nurture my relationships with fellow men and the younger people that I mentor. Because with empathy, you can do almost anything. I've seen a guy who was a drug addict and he went to jail, and almost everybody gave up on him. But his own son, that was disgusted with him at one point, became his biggest fan and said, "Dad, you can do it. You can clean up your act." He kicked the drugs, he kicked the alcohol, he became a very successful barber. He has his own barber shop. And then his son went from, being disconnected from him by society, by his mother, by everybody else, to being his biggest fan, his biggest supporter. You see? And he showed his son that he has empathy and accountability, because he made a commitment to his son that he was going to kick the habit and that he was going to become an entrepreneur. And he did exactly those things. So we have to project what we want to be successful at. We cannot let society dictate to us what positions we should be in, the way all of these sitcoms on TV portray men as bumbling fools and, effeminate people and that sort of thing. We have to step away from those stereotypes by being empathetic and applying that empathy to nurture our society. To me, that's the most important challenge.
Thank you so much for that. Again, so much richness here. And I want to shout out those of you who are listening can't see this, but Chris Owusu's daughter. Tell us what's her name. How old is she?
Oh, her name is Ayla Owusu, and she's 5 years old.
Oh,
difference.
And she definitely is very comfortable with dad. It's awesome to see you being dad in that
That's a
way.
wonderful thing.
So you said something earlier as you were responding to that earlier question, and you talked about kids not just not having their fathers around, but you also talked about fathers that don't know their purpose. And it reminded me of something that Malidoma Patrice Somé wrote in his book, The Healing Wisdom of Africa. He said, a crisis of identity and purpose is an inner burning that is rarely extinguished by a visit to a career planning office, by graduation from a prestigious school, or even by years in a successful career. A crisis of identity and purpose is a hollowness, a void that threatens to erase meaning in everything people do. So since you brought up the whole issue of purpose, as you answer this question, what are some of the challenges that you feel Black men are facing? Would you put purpose as one of those main challenges? And what other challenges would you include? And that's for you, Chris.
Oh, for me?
Yes.
Yeah. So first and foremost, thank you for sharing, Mr. Chuma. I appreciate that. I would definitely say a lack of godly identity, because the thing is, a lot of men, unfortunately, they tie their worth and value based off their income and what they can produce. And unfortunately, we need to understand that as men, we have an innate value that is created and put in us by God. And just because we can't necessarily get the specific job, or if we cannot provide or do something, that does not mean our value is anything less. And like Mr. Chuma said, unfortunately, as a man, if we may be brainwashed by societal norms and think that we are less than, and with that struggle comes a cognitive dissonance, where then we start to try to live up to something, which creates some stress in us that unfortunately we don't have the comfortability to express, because again, Mr. Chuma, going back to what he said, we are told to be strong and suppress it, and then suppression leads to expression, and then that leads to a potential record outburst.
Okay, that was bars. Suppression leads to expression, and probably not the kind of expression we want, right?
Correct.
Right. Exactly.
It's like a pressure cooker. It just, when you're bound, just like what Chris said, you have those expectations on one side, and then you have society telling you that you haven't, fulfilled those expectations. So the mental trauma is too much, and then that causes the man to lash out, and then society says, see what I told you, he's an angry man, you know what I mean? So it's just that, that gyroscope, it just keeps going round and round. I don't mean to belabor the point, but Chris put it very, 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 very well. It just builds up that pressure, and then when the person can't take it anymore and there's an outburst, and then it justifies what society said about the guy in the first place, you see.
Chris, anything else that you want to add to that?
No, that pretty much sums it up. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. How about you, Madhu? What would you say are some of the stereotypes or challenges that you feel that Black men are facing today?
I think one of the big ones is lack of community, as well as the social expectations. And like they said, not having proper outlets to be authentic and vulnerable. And so there's a lot of suppressed emotions, a lot of confusion at how to deal with the expectations, or how to deal with conflict, or how to deal with any of the challenges that may come up or be contrary to what the societal norm for manhood has been defined as. And I think as a group of men, that has been the big struggle, is really defining what manhood is. And for a while, I actually was listening to a podcast called the Man Enough podcast, which dives specifically into that, about reframing masculinity and building a movement around healthy manhood and how to show up for each other as brothers. So that way each man can then be empowered to show up for themselves, show up for others, and be able to lead with love and courage.
That's good. That's real good.
You all are bringing up so many things. I'm taking notes, and I'm like, okay, we got to get to mental trauma. We've got to get to what is manhood.
Yeah.
What is
So,
manhood?
big question.
Very good. So,
So,
Madhu, you take that
Madu,
one
you want to take
because
a stab at that
yes,
first,
you
and then
Madhu,
we'll go
you
to
take
Chuma.
that
What
one
is
because
manhood?
Man. Um,
Because I remember when the Senate was when Justice Oyika Brown was going through Katanji Oyika Brown was going through her Senate confirmation, and they said, "What is a woman?" And on the one hand, it's like a simple question, and you should just be able to say, "Okay, it's someone who has ovaries and a fallopian tube, and so on and so forth." But there are actually women who are not born with that because whatever it's happened, and so people were like, "Oh, she can't just answer a simple question," and so on and so forth. So, but when we really have to dive into these things, it might be a little bit more complex than we think. So, what is manhood?
absolutely.
And while Madhu is processing and sharing, Chuma and Chris, get ready. What is manhood? Give us 30 seconds on that.
all right. So manhood to me, or one way I think it can be looked at, in traditional society, manhood is seen as being a provider. And although I think that is a aspect of it, I think it branches out much further from that. And maybe you can even look at it from being a provider, but a provider of what?
Thank you.
Society, it's
Thank you.
being a provider of
Yes.
finances, being able to, keep a roof over your family's head and be able to, do those kinds of things. But I think it really boils down to being a provider in multiple aspects. So being a financial provider, being a spiritual provider, being a safe space for those around you, being able to provide what's the word I'm looking for? Um, being able to provide love, compassion, and all of the different things that really help people thrive, not just survive, but to thrive. I think that's what manhood comes down to.
And as you're saying that, I'm thinking that there are going to be a lot of women nodding who are listening to this. And I think there are going to be a lot of men who maybe are saying, but where was I supposed to learn this? And everything you've just said, that where am I supposed to get all of this from, and who is supporting me? Because my father didn't do all of that, or my father wasn't even available. If he was available, yes, he was just a financial provider. But let's go to you, Chuma. How would you define manhood?
Well, thank you very much for the question, and thank you, Madhu, for that really beautiful insight. To me, manhood is, even though it's gender based, you can see every once in a while, I'll shout out to my daddy moms who are single moms trying to do the role of the mother and the father. You see? So, manhood, in a way, even though it's gender based, is based on providing that umbrella of nurturing, protection,
Yeah,
strength, and provision. So you're providing, yes, you're providing financially, but you're also providing safe haven for your children, your community to run to you and stay under the eaves of your leaves and receive protection and nourishment and a time out to where they can get some healing. It's not just about being a strong man, brute force, and that sort of thing. We have to be gentle in our strength too, to be true men.
that's
And
good.
that's why when
Good.
somebody says, this person is a gentleman, having the title of a gentleman is a big responsibility because you're very civil on one side, but then you're prepared to use brute force on the other. I've always believed in
Gentle
balance.
in our strength. Wow.
Yes, you have to be gentle in our strength. That's what makes you a man, because people who are bullies, who are men, I don't consider them fully mature men. I don't consider their manhood to be well rounded, because if you're a bully, then that means you have left empathy out of your character development and personal development. All of the strong men that I know, all of the gentlemen that I know, indulge in personal development. They read books. They try to assimilate some
Oh, you you
spirituality,
you 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 were
some
jumping in right
meditation.
there, because that was the next question I was going to ask y'all. So,
Yeah,
Chris,
okay,
what's your definition of manhood?
there you
That was
go.
a great answer, though. I
That
need to
was a
add that was
fantastic answer. That's what I'm telling people. Take notes. I know I'm going to come back and take notes, and I'm
absolutely.
going to have my younger sons watch this as well. This is really instructive.
That's awesome. Well, first, let me say, Madhu, thank you for setting this off, as they say. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
And Mr. Chuma, again, excellent, detailed
Thank you,
answer. I
brother.
appreciate you.
Thank you, brother.
Again, and it really it really encompasses what both of these gentlemen said. And manhood to me would include an identity. First of all, knowing that you're made by God and for God, number one. So, and then number two, having the understanding that your job as a man is to use your God-given gifts to add value to those in your area of impact. So again, as Mr. Chuma said, that could be providing that safe haven for the neighborhood children to come to, or that could be being a barber, to where you're using your hands-on skill set to manufacture somebody's hair better, but in that you're a therapy umbrella for that person who is with you. Or it could be like Mr. Madhu, who uses athletic prowess and great respectable manner to be an impact now to what he went through as a young man. Now he's using it in Columbus, Ohio. So just using what God has given you to help pay it forward, so that you become a representative of who made you in the image of God.
Awesome. So one of the things that you all brought up, points that you brought up, had to do with mental trauma. And of course, Chris, you've also talked about the work that you're doing to ensure that you can come and be a healing force in our community. Why do you think conversations about mental health have been such a taboo for men for so long? Because even so in the women's sphere, I can say we've been talking about self-care and taking care of ourselves and paying attention to our mental health for much longer than men have. And it seems like it's still kind of, if a man talks about it, some people may look at you like, okay,
Absolutely.
you're a little soft or something like that.
Yeah.
So why do you think conversations about mental health remain taboo for men? And how do you come to this issue of mental health in your life? What are you doing in terms of taking care of your mental health in your life? And we will start with Chris Owusu.
Well, first, the mental health has become taboo because, unfortunately, again, going back to the societal norms, when men grow up, young boys, they look at their superheroes. It can be hip hop, it can be whatever it is, but usually the men are, as Chuma said, they're bumbling idiots, as in Homer Simpson, or it can be different shows that show us as big giant blobs of flesh who can't express themselves, or it can be like Superman, who you've never seen him express his feelings. They are simply there to provide a service and then retreat. But you never see a norm to where a man is sitting down in a safe environment expressing his fears, faults, and failures. So that's number one. It's normalized that we don't have feelings. We simply do a service as a man.
Like that.
And then number two, what am I doing? I've been going to therapy for 4 years, number one. And then number two, I've then revamped my career field from teaching to be a licensed professional counselor. So I've just went ahead and taken upon a full-fledged assault to help heal the community by taking part of the therapy practice and doing it for myself. And then I want to help other people through what I've been through.
Wow, that is powerful. Chuma and Madhu, as you guys come to the same question, I'm wondering what impact video games and the way that it has it's like really taking a hold of our young men, girls too, but more so our young men. Like, how is that impacting the mental health of young men, and what are they learning? Because Chris, as you were talking and you were saying, yeah, here are some of the characteristics of these superheroes, and this, we throw around terms like toxic masculinity and all of that. My son just did a speech on the new NCAA 25 coming out or something like that, and he's like super excited about it, but it's all of this just men running after a ball and so on and so forth. So Matt, if you want to address that, why do you think conversations about mental health have remained taboo for men for so long, and what are you doing to take care of your mental health, to heal from any traumas that you've experienced?
So, like Chris said, I think one of the big ones is societal norms. It's not something that's very talked about, especially among personal men groups, just in their individual uh, corners. So, I mean, you may share that information with a very close loved one, but there are very few times where men can just get together and feel safe enough to be vulnerable about those things without being judged for sharing those sides of them. I think another piece that goes into it is lack of awareness, not really taking the time to see what's going on underneath the surface. I mean, underneath the surface, and what may be contributing to any of the things that you're going through, or really almost dismissing them because you are scared of having to face it, which again, that is contrary to all the societal norms because you're supposed to be brave and courageous and this and that. So if you to yourself feel like I can't even face, some of my own demons, then am I really brave? Am I really, this or that? And then I think another piece, or actually, some of the things that I've done to address my mental health is therapy. I personally have never shied away from that. I think it's something that is very beneficial to every person. While I was in OSU, I connected with the OSU therapist. I actually was able to meet with a Black man and develop a great relationship with him. He also then ended up creating a group, a therapy group where us as men were able to get together, share different stories, have different conversations. And that has now kind of transferred into one of the groups that I'm in now with fellow brothers from OSU, where we now meet about weekly to kind of discuss different topics and share things that are going on in our personal lives.
So you all have created community for you as men.
Correct.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Um,
Fantastic.
and also to add, I think another thing that adds to it is almost trying to create this identity separation from woman and not trying to be seen as a woman or these traits that are associated
Feminine.
with being a woman.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so in that aspect, you are then negating a lot of the truth of who you are and a lot of what you have been created to do. And because you're now doing that, it creates cognitive dissonance. It creates other issues that then add into your mental health.
Wow. And again, this is for men to listen to. It's also for anyone who loves men, mothers, wives, sisters, significant others, because understanding also some of the conversations that you may need to have with this man in your life, and ways that you can support as well. Because I think there are times when women can also shame men into not fully embracing all that they are. Chuma, how about
Correct.
you?
That is correct.
Yeah,
And let me
go
tell
ahead.
you, I'm upset with myself because I had promised myself I was going to bring my notebook and my pen so I could take notes as we were doing it, because I knew it was going to be amazing. All right. And everything that Chris said, everything that Madhu has said is just it's a reinforcement of what I know in my gut. Look at that beautiful girl playing with her dad and getting that affection from him while he's on a call about being a man and what a man provides for his family. If there's no better example than what we just saw. For those of you who didn't who are listening to this, you may not see this, but I encourage you to go onto YouTube and play this video so that you can see what I'm talking about. Unrehearsed, just a little girl, hugging her dad, and her dad is on a call with other people who want to nurture and revitalize and protect their community by engaging in these conversations. Okay, now when Chris said, the fear, the failure, and the things that focus a pain that creates a hole in the heart of a man, it makes you feel desperate, to get yourself fulfilled in a better way. And Madhu said something about also that some men don't know better. They don't know better. They haven't been guided. They haven't read the books. Nobody showed them anything. Nobody gave them a book to read or anything like that. So one of the things
Chris, if
that,
I may, it
um,
might even be
yes,
worse than no one has shown them what to do. It could actually be that they've been shown the exact opposite.
Absolutely.
opposite,
Yeah.
Because
exactly.
what is society really
Yes,
pushing on black men? Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's tough because, just like Chris was saying, it goes from one extreme to the other. You have, Bart Simpson, with his pants half down his butt, and then you have Superman with the cape on. Everybody's expecting him to be, the man of the hour. He protects everybody, he dodges bullets, and then the other guy's a bumbling idiot. There's no medium ground where the man is seen as a responsible, balancing force. And that's where society has sort of left us on our own. But we have to find a way to bring that balance back. And that brings me to what both my brothers said. And I appreciate that because I'm a big fan of therapy. Mental therapy is very, very important. As well as different types of therapy, self-love. You are very, very you're a driving force in the self-love industry and mindset.
Shout out her
And
most recent book.
see, so and it's not even to be a plug, but it's just to let people know that personal development is the source of that balance. And I'll show you something that I use to stay grounded. um, this symbol is the most important symbol to me.
Mm.
All right, the yin yang. And the reason why the yin yang is the most important symbol to me is because it is about balance, your positive and negative energies. And if you notice, even the positive and negative energies still interact with each other in whatever sector that they're in. So you're going to have a little bit of the white, you're going to have a little bit of the black, you're going to have a little bit of the black, a little bit of the white. We have to stay balanced. When I need to meditate, this helps me meditate because it allows me to focus on the fact that every person has both male and female energy running through them. It's electrical energy, it's electrical current. So anytime that I feel like I'm being a little bit stressed, I try as much as possible to balance my energies out. And what I encourage all of the people that I mentor, the young men, the peer groups that I belong to, I always tell everybody that we interact with to make sure that you balance your left brain and right brain activity. If you're a scientist, try and develop some type of creative habits that balance your scientific precision with creativity. If you're an artist, a gardener, a farmer, try and develop a few of those technical skills that allow your brain to make complex calculations quickly so that it balances your right brain, left brain activity and makes you a more wholesome person. And that's why you'll see a lot of
You mean
people.
like women who can multitask?
Yeah. Yes, of course. You see, and that's one thing that, of course, men, and they're almost like laser focused.
Tunnel
That's one of
vision,
the things.
yes.
That's, yeah, tunnel vision. That's one of the things that we can work on, and I like to interact with people who allow me to balance myself and the expectations that people have of me, but with the potential that I have to nurture a better understanding of that expectation.
Got you. Okay, so we've got at least three more questions and like maybe 6 minutes. So we're going to go really fast on this. And let me say this to our listeners. These are entry points. We're starting the conversation, but the conversation does not need to end here. You can carry on this
Correct.
conversation with people in your sphere of
Absolutely.
influence as well.
Start the
So,
discussion.
absolutely. So we really can't talk about men and mental health and resilience without talking about this whether it's a false or manufactured or a real issue between Black men and women in terms of our relationships and how that seems to be playing out. And all these, so many people on YouTube, high value, I'm a high value man, you're a low value woman, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And I bring that up in the context of a book by Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, the ISIS Papers. And in it, she talks about the impact of white supremacy and racism on Black relationships, the impact that racism has had on Black men. So when we're talking about purpose and we're talking about stereotypes and we're talking about mental trauma, you can't divorce it from our genocide, our Ma'afa. You cannot divorce it from the Middle Passage. You cannot divorce it from slavery. You cannot divorce it from buck breaking here in the United States and in other parts of the Americas. You cannot divorce it from Black men basically not being allowed to be the protectors of their families.
Correct. It's
having to stand by and watch.
Hardwired in our society. Yeah. That's correct.
You cannot
Even
divorce it from the high incarceration rates, the fact that we are over-policed, we are overcharged, we're over-sentenced. You cannot divorce it from the fact that we can work hard and still get paid less, and that you now have Black women who are earning, actually the most educated segment of the American population, who, although they still earn less than white men and women, earn on the average more now than Black men, and all of that
significantly
that it puts. So here's the question, and you got 45 seconds. How do Black men build resilience in the face of all of this adversity? And a resilience that then allows us to heal enough to come together as couples, as community. Because if the Black male-female relationship is the foundation of our community and that is frayed, we are in trouble and our children are in trouble. So how do Black men go about building resiliency to be able to take on all of these things? And in what ways, if you even have a personal story of how that's shown up for you, but keep an eye on the clock and give yourself about 60 seconds. So Madhu, I'll start with you.
I would say develop a growth mindset, strengthen your emotional awareness, really get to know yourself, understand how you can show up for yourself better, because then you'll be able to show up for others better. Build your community. And then I want to just read this excerpt from this book that I actually went through with my younger brothers. It's called Father to Son, Ode to Our Black Young. And yes, I'm not their father, but I just thought it was a really good read.
That's beautiful.
For Black boys. And it says, "We desire to bequest two things to our children. The first one is roots. The other one is wings." A Sudanese proverb.
Imagine that.
And I think in a lot of ways, that's what it comes down to. So resilience, build those roots, let them reach deep down so you have a strong foundation, but then also don't limit yourself. The sky is the limit for a lot of people, but get rid of that kind of saying, like there is no limit. So build those wings and let yourself have the freedom to explore anything that you can set your mind to.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. How about you, Chris? Chris, again, for those of you who can only listen, you've got to come to the YouTube channel.
You have to see this.
Such a beautiful expression. You
have to see. I am touched.
Talking about. He clearly has poured so much into this young lady. Yep. This younger. Hi, sweetheart. She's waving.
Hi, honey.
That she is just loving on her father, and her father is loving on her, and it's so beautiful. But so Chris, what would you say about how Black men build or develop resilience in this, with all of the things that are coming at them?
Well, first and foremost, again, Madhu broke it down eloquently, and to kind of
very much so.
Steal from him. A big part of that is having a personal mission statement. You have to know your why. You have to, because if you don't know your purpose of a thing, you'll abuse it, and that includes time, resources, and opportunities. So
Wait,
If
wait,
you
wait, 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 wait. You gotta slow down. Say that part again. If
Yeah,
you
say
don't
that again.
know, yes.
if you don't know the purpose of a thing or an encounter, you will abuse it. And that goes from medication to romantic opportunities. So it's important that you have a mission statement that fortifies your why, whether you went into Walmart, whether you go on a date, whether you have a job interview. Your purpose is to leave that person or situation better than when you found them. So if you have that
Absolutely.
instilled in you as a
That's
man,
so fantastic.
if you have that
That is
instilled
so
in you as a man,
fantastic.
I appreciate you, sir. And then if you have that instilled, then you'll never like you'll have a ripple effect of change like Madhu and Chuma have done in your community and wherever you go.
That's powerful.
This is so good. Every single person, go to the podcast, go to YouTube, share this with some
You
of the
have
guys.
to share this with
A
people.
woman who loves a guy. This is amazing. How about you, Chuma? What would you say Black men can do to build that resilience?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I'm seeing it quite a bit in the circles that I'm mixing in. So it's very crystallized in my vision right now. And one of the first things that I will tell any Black man or any man at all, since this is International Male Day, is
Yes.
don't be bitter. Don't be bitter. You need to discipline your disappointment and dismay. All right. Don't be bitter. So allow yourself to step back from whatever
I think the three
disappointments
of
you
you
may
need to
have.
come together and write a book. The chapters are writing themselves. Okay.
Yes,
Don't be
absolutely.
bitter. You said
Don't be bitter. Discipline your disappointment, your dismay, and your disbelief. So society is going to throw disbelief at you because it's going to say, you know what, maybe you're not good enough. I gave you this opportunity to become a manager, and you didn't prove to me that you can be a manager. But even though you're more experienced than the guy I just promoted, well, you didn't seem like you proved yourself. And let me tell you, this is happening in corporate America every day. All right. They're trying to belittle the brothers that are even more polished, more educated than some of the other candidates out there. But you have to remember, it's a trick. Don't lash out. Don't be bitter. You have to compose yourself. Remember to dress well, speak well, be well groomed. All right. So that you can stand out in terms of your excellence. Your excellence will distinguish you from some of the diamonds in the rough that may be there. And I'm not saying that there aren't some, rough and rugged brothers that don't have good hearts. But when you distance yourself from the disappointment or dismay that you feel, then you allow yourself to be emotionally intelligent, emotionally mature, and that timeout will give you the opportunity to make better choices. And with that, I'm so glad that everybody's bringing books because I'm reading The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra. All right. Now, I want you to know this, right? The very first spiritual principle of success in his book is called the law of pure potentiality. The first law, and it says, the source of all creation is pure consciousness, pure potentiality, seeking expression from the unmanifest to the manifest. And when we realize that our true self is one of pure potentiality, we align with the power that manifests everything in the universe. So it's just like Chris and Madhu were saying, if you're not aware that you're not manifesting, how can you manifest?
That's good.
You see? So pure potentiality, I encourage all of my men folk and even the women listening and watching, understand that it's just like starting a car. Our car has potential, but you haven't turned the key in it yet. So step back, grab your key, put it in your ignition, and turn the ignition.
And go for it. All right, 30 seconds on this question. How do you define freedom? The show is Rethinking Freedom. How do you define freedom? We're going to go Chris, Madhu, Chuma. 30 seconds. How do you define freedom?
To me, freedom is the ability to do what you desire to do within without having certain time, I would say time constraints. The ability to do what you would like to do without having particular time constraints would be optimum freedom.
Okay. Okay. How about you, Madhu?
I would define freedom as embodying abundance.
Wow.
Good.
Okay. Okay. How about you, Chuma?
Look, I mean, this young man is just, I'm like, I'm about to fall down on the floor here. So to me, freedom means being able to assimilate and appreciate differing perspectives to allow oneself to blossom without prejudgment. Because you
Okay,
take
I'm taking
somebody's
notes.
opinion, somebody's
I will be going
perspective.
back to,
Yes,
to write that
I'm
one
taking
down.
notes.
For sure.
I have to sit with everything you all are saying today.
Yep.
Wow,
Yep.
wow, wow.
Because you have to be
Okay.
able to take those perspectives and allow yourself to be objective enough to blossom from these perspectives that may not be yours. And that's freedom, because you're not chained by your own ego or your own perception alone.
Wow.
That's the reason why a vehicle has two headlights, not one. If you see a vehicle with one headlight, you're like, what is that? All right. So
And
a
by
vehicle
the way,
has two
if you need
headlights,
a
one on
car,
the right, one on the left.
check out Chuma. He can also assist you with that. Okay, this
I
is
keep
your
bringing
last
up cars.
question.
I'm sorry. It's just, it's just the perspective. I'm sorry.
This is your last question. Any closing comments that you would like to make? Again, 30 seconds. Any closing comments that you would like to make for any man who is listening to this? It's International Men's Day tomorrow. Maybe feeling down, maybe feeling unappreciated, maybe feeling really energized by their purpose, but there's also a little bit of trepidation or fear. Men across the world in different places, maybe someone listening to this who is currently incarcerated. But what would you like to share with the men who are listening today? Madhu, we'll start with you.
Well, first of all, for all those listening now, for all those who will listen, happy International Men's Day. And what I would have to say is practice patience with yourself, with others. Yeah, that's really probably one of the biggest things that I would have to say. Again, with our talk around resilience and mental health, it's important to be able to show up for yourself, and it's important to be able to show up for those around you. And no one is going to be perfect in doing so. So make sure that you have the patience to be kind to yourself when you fall short of what you think you may have, that you may have needed to do, and have the empathy to continue trying again and build on that experience.
Thank you. How about you, Chris? 30 seconds.
Just the two things I would say that you're made if you're a man listening, remember you are made by God and for God. You can only know why you're here by knowing who made you. And then I would say learn to fail forward. If you are a man, learn to fail forward. Your mistakes do not define you. You are not your last era. That is simply a chapter in a whole book. That's it.
Wow. Powerful. How about
Amazing.
you, Chuma?
Amazing. I thank you. I thank Mr. Madhu and Mr. Chris for those perspectives. And I would say to anybody listening, anybody watching, be at your best. Offer your best, because the cosmos will give you what you give it. So if you offer your best to the cosmos, you will surely get it in return. And I like what Chris said, because somebody loves you. If you're listening to this, if you're watching this, somebody loves you. God loves you. Your little girl loves you, or your little boy loves you. Your spouse loves you. And I would also say this, please, to the ladies and the partners of the men who are listening to this, who can benefit from this, go easy on the guy. Please. Show him some love. Show him some respect. Give him a break. Please give the guy a break, okay? Love him, respect him, and don't be too harsh in your expectations or your criticisms, because he's trying to make it. And brother, when she's giving you a break, be at your best. That way both of you meet in the middle.
It's good.
I want to say So I have so much gratitude to each and every one of you, Madhu, Chuma, Chris. When I thought of doing this show, you were the first ones that came to mind. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for all
Thank
of
you
our
for having
listeners.
us.
This is Rethinking Freedom.